None of us know for sure what's out there. That's why we keep looking. Keep your faith. Travel hopefully. The universe will surprise you. Constantly.
Hey everybody, my name's Oscar, this is Adam, and today we're not going to be breaking down another Doctor Who episode. No, today we're going to be reviewing the entirety of Series 11 of Doctor Who.
Yeah, we're going to be going into all 10 episodes, so if you haven't seen them yet, definitely check them out because we will just spoil everything for you. We'll just ruin the show for you. But I mean, if you don't care, just watch right now, so let's go.
So Adam, all the signs at the start of this series were pointing to Series 11 essentially being kind of a soft reboot of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
For the perfect entry point or re-entry point for lapsed fans, perhaps.
Definitely.
Do you think it was a success in that regard?
Yeah, I think largely it succeeds in that sort of goal, right? It's like Christian was up front and said each of these 10 episodes is going to be like a standalone story, offering like a different sort of aspect of what Doctor Who can give fans. And it feels like that old sort of Forrest Gump reference, you know, like, oh, life's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get.
Do you want to carry on doing that?
Yeah, I'll do the rest of this review as Forrest Gump. And I felt like that works well for this series of Doctor Who, right? Like, we got 10 very different flavours, chocolatey flavours of Doctor Who. Like, you get the rip-roaring adventure, you got like sort of bleak horror, bleak historical, you know, the campy fun ones, like sci-fi history. It's a real, like, it's just everything. It's like a smorgasbord. Oh, I hate that word, but it's a smorgasbord of like what Doctor Who is and can be for a new audience. And I think that worked well.
Delivery for the Doctor.
One of the best things about this series for me was the character development. I think you got real arcs across this series with the companions, and I think Chibnall's shown that he can do that before in his work on Broadchurch, for example.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think it also struggled to really construct any proper plots. I think there were a lot of sort of plot shortcuts within episodes, and even across episodes we didn't get much of an arc, which I think the series suffered as a result of that. And there were a lot of loose threads as well.
Yeah, there were like a lot of loose threads with characters just disappearing off into God knows where.
No.
And that's kind of frustrating, right? Especially when it feels, when you're watching the episodes week to week, that sort of stuff's building up to a finale, or, you know, generating hype for that sort of like last episode. But that never came, and that was kind of a down note for me, a real sort of like negative for this series.
And especially coming straight on from Moffat's era, where I think Moffat was very good at plot writing and probably didn't quite get the character development side of it down. Whereas Chibnall is completely the reverse. He's developed characters really well, but hasn't really developed much of a plot over the course of this series.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like, if you look at all of the episodes, you know, as a 10-episode sort of series, they work really well in isolation of each other, like, you know, as separate stories. But I just don't think they have that coherence that brings them together as a satisfying whole, you know, to create like a memorable series.
All right, so we've established that this series was kind of an eclectic mixtape, if you like, of Doctor Who's past. But let's get into the episodes themselves. Here's our one-sentence reviews of every episode.
The Woman Who Fell to Earth was a stylish, assured opener that gave us toothy Tim Shaw, Sheffield Steel, and a confident debut for Jodie Whittaker.
The Ghost Monument followed up with an adventurous race across a desolate, hostile planet. While slight on actual plot, this episode made up for it with top-notch production values and the glorious return of the TARDIS.
Very nice.
Rosa was a cracking time-travelling adventure that delved into one of the most defining moments of US history and gave us one of the best historical episodes in years.
Arachnids in the UK saw the Doctor and company fighting against a skin-crawling foe, a Trump avatar.
Please don't mention that name.
Oh, and some spiders too. It was camp, daft fun, and really, what more do you want from that episode title?
The Suranga Conundrum was alien for the Disney kids audience, and while it was a supremely uneven and messy episode, it still had time to focus on Team TARDIS's family dynamic.
Demons of the Punjab was a fantastic historical episode that delved into the partition of India, a now largely untaught section of history. It was full of heart and charm, and had some great guest characters.
Kablam was a fun, silly jaunt through an automated online retailer that totally wasn't Amazon. No, not at all.
The Witchfinders was a bleak adventure through Britain's witch trial craze that featured a fun, campy performance from Alan Cumming as James I, and a bizarre mud zombie twist that came out of left field.
It Takes You Away was absolutely bonkers. Brilliant, but definitely bonkers. What started as a low-key Scandi horror evolved into a Douglas Adams-esque fairy tale that touched on grief, loss, and loneliness. Also frogs.
My own form is endless, but this frog is a form that delights me.
And finally, the Battle of Ranskor Av Kolos was an ambitious finale that paid off many of the series' loose plot threads, while seeing the return of our good pal Tim Shaw.
Tim Shaw, don't diss me, Grandad, ever! Shot him!
Yeah, but just the foot. Just in the foot, just to shut him up. Don't tell the doc, she'll be livid.
Okay, so Series 11 gave us a brand new Doctor in the form of Jodie Whittaker. But Oscar, what did you make of her debut series?
I thought Whittaker herself gave us some really good performances. However, I think this is probably, out of all the characters, I think the Doctor was the one that developed the least over the course of the series.
Yeah.
I don't really feel like we got to know her properly. We never had an episode that really examined her character, you know? We're 10 episodes through this Doctor's run now, and I don't really know what sets her apart from Capaldi's Doctor, or Tennant's Doctor, or Smith's Doctor, really, you know?
Yeah, like those Doctors all felt more unique, I suppose. I mean, obviously that's across several series, we got to see different flavours of them, and this is just one series of Whittaker's Doctor. But like, I think you're right, there was no truly identifiable aspect of her character. Like, we kind of saw things that we really liked in the first episode where she was very practical and she had, like, you know, making her own sonic screwdriver was really cool.
Ta-da! Ooh. Should be fine.
And we got parts of that sort of, you know, moments, little
sprinkled across the series.
Glimpses into sort of her character moments across the series, but I don't think we know her Doctor yet. And I think you're right, there's definitely not been like that arc for her character or anything like that, and I hope, they definitely sort of will explore that in future series.
Yeah, and it wouldn't actually surprise me if that was a deliberate choice. You know, we saw that this series obviously had more companions than we've seen for the previous few series, so, you know, potentially that could have been a deliberate choice for her to essentially be a vehicle to push other people's stories forward rather than have her story pushed forward herself. But I do think that when you're introducing a new Doctor, I feel like there should be a really strong character there, and she is, but I don't think she's as strong as previous Doctors have been. But despite all of that, I did think we saw a really nice goofy side as well as a really good serious side. And I can't wait to see what they do with her in the next series. So roll on Series 12.
So Series 11 was very much like an ensemble character piece, right? We've already said that one of the strongest points about the series was, you know, its companions and their character development. And on the whole, I think we got 3 very likeable, very relatable characters who all had strong motivations for actually wanting to travel with the Doctor, which is, I think, a really good thing. Personally, my favourite was Graham. Like, he stole most of the scenes he was in. He was just fantastic across the series. And he, you know, I thought he was just going to be Bradley Walsh being Bradley Walsh, but what we got was this multi-layered character who, you know, went through a range of emotions like wonder, grief, loss, like his, you know, thirst for family, or, you know, in the final episode, his desire for revenge, which was kind of a bit, I felt a little bit out of character for him, but it had a good payoff.
I'm the better man.
I just thought he was brilliant in this series.
Yeah, he was probably my favourite as well, actually, which I absolutely did not expect. I was really so against Bradley Walsh joining the cast.
Yeah.
I thought he would just be used for the comic relief. I thought it'd be, okay, we're doing a Graham scene now, it's going to be the funny scene.
Yeah.
But actually, he was used really, really well. There were some funny scenes with him in, but also we saw a vulnerable side to him as well. And,
Definitely.
And I think, I think his arc was definitely the strongest and most satisfying to watch over the course of this series.
And the relationship dynamic between him and Ryan, I think, was handled quite well. It had this really nice arc to it that kind of felt developed, you know, at several different points across the series, and it had a nice payoff. It had 2 nice payoffs, actually. It had the nice payoff at the end of episode 9, and then it had, like, Ryan saying, "I love you," which nearly brought a tear to my eye.
Aww,
in episode 10.
We're family. And I love you.
What did you just say?
I'm not saying it twice. Don't pretend you couldn't hear me the first time.
I think they attempted a similar sort of arc with Ryan himself as well and tried to develop him. And I think he did develop to an extent, but I think his use was probably a little less consistent than Graham's character.
Yeah.
I think when you look at some of the moments that Ryan shows over the course of this series, he's supposed to be 19, but he acts more like a 13 or 14-year-old, and it seems really unnatural to me. And you had that moment in the Ghost Monument where he just runs out shooting like it's Call of Duty.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just like, that was supposed to show his immature side, but actually it just came across really ham-fisted.
Who's next? See, that's what I'm talking about!
And although we do get that nice relationship growth with Graham, I do think the way Ryan was used, even though there were some nice moments in Rosa, for example, and in The Witchfinders, he seemed less mature than he should have been, especially since you'd expect him to be somewhat mature given that he's lost both of his parents,
Yeah.
right?
I think like we kind of saw some character growth with his character in the final couple of episodes. I really liked his dynamic with is it Hannah, I think in episode 9, It Takes You Away. I really liked how it started with him being quite like bullish and immature about that sort of like, oh, I have to look after the girl. And they had a really nice little arc over that episode, and it had a really nice payoff. And I think like he learned a lot from that, he grew a lot in that episode, and I think that informed that relationship between him and Graham in episode 10 as well. So hopefully we'll just see his character, you know, leave some of those immature moments behind into the next series and really start developing as an adult.
I miss her too. All the time. But at least we got each other, right? Granddad.
And finally, when we come to Yaz, I think Yaz suffered the first sort of 2 or 3 episodes with a lot of the focus being on Ryan and Graham and Grace. But I think she finally came into her own in Arachnids in the UK and in Demons in the Punjab as well.
Yeah.
Like, I thought those episodes really developed her character nicely and gave us some insight into her family life and her backstory, which really helps me kind of sympathise and empathise with those characters. And I think by the end of Demons in the Punjab, I was fully on board with Yaz, and I really liked her a lot. And one thing I actually would love to see more of from her in the next series is her sort of like police life and how that kind of can interact with her life as a companion of the Doctor. That's one thing that I would love to see more of. But yeah, definitely by the end of this series, I really liked Yaz.
I love you, Nani. And I love you too, Betty.
So I definitely think you're right about Yaz's development, but for me it came a little bit too late, sort of hitting in that mid sort of series area. And I think this is part of a bigger problem with the show, is that there's just maybe too many companions. Like episodes would frequently sort of struggle to find things for them to do as part of the plot. And as a result, they just get lost in the mix, like, occasionally. I think this definitely happened to, like, Ryan in Arachnids in the UK. As I said, like, Yaz in those first couple of episodes. And pretty much all of the characters in episode 5, the Saranga Conundrum, which kind of went more in on the Doctor. So I think the problem there is that with 4 characters, there's just too many sort of perspectives to try and fit into the episode. And when you add in guest stars, it gets even more crowded. So maybe like if they had, I don't know, a trio, it might have been a little bit more streamlined. I don't think this sort of had any major effect or impact on their development. I do think they all were developed as rounded, like, likable characters, but I think it just felt like in occasional episodes you just lose Ryan, and or Graham would have like 0 to do, and it would be a bit disappointing for that character development.
Yeah, I don't think the problem necessarily is the amount of characters. I think Chibnall and the showrunners as a whole just need to know when to relegate them completely from an episode. Because we've had ensemble casts before accompanying the Doctor on his or her travels. You know, we've had Captain Jack join the squad, we've had Mickey, for example, and K9 and Sarah Jane. Like, this isn't the first time we've had a number of companions.
Definitely, yeah.
But I think what those series did was rather than dragging them along and giving them a bit part to play in an episode here or there, I think it knew when to just leave Mickey at home and just have an episode with Rose.
Yeah.
And that's what I think this series didn't do so well. is know when to leave Ryan at home or know
Yeah.
when to leave Yaz at home. And instead it tried to bring all of them with us and give all of them something to do in each episode. And I think it probably meant each episode got spread a bit too thin.
Yeah.
That said, I think you're right, they all do get sufficient characterization across the series as a whole, and I do like each of them, so it would be a shame to see one of them left behind, but it probably needed to leave one of them behind here or there for the sake of the series as a whole.
So another element that I really missed in Series 11 was an arc. Like, we've already talked about this, but I think let's go a little bit more in detail now. If you look at like what we had with Moffat, where he went super intense on his series arcs to the point where they were kind of getting very convoluted.
They weren't even arcs by the end, they were like circles or spheres or
Yeah.
they were going in on themselves so many times I lost where I was.
Yeah, so like I think this is a response to that, and Chris Chibnall was like, we're going to pare it down, there's no series arc, we're just going to do standalone stories. And I kind of think that's good, but I also think it hurts like the building sense of mystery that Doctor Who's really good at. Like, I love Series 1 where you had Bad Wolf, where it was very subtle. Like, that series was very similar. Like, it had a load of cool standalone stories, but you had those hints that kind of like people could theorize around, and that built towards the finale. Series 5 was also great with the crack in the wall. I really liked how that built up over the series. I mean, you still got like great episodes in that, but like that arc was just teased and teased and teased. But we just got nothing here. We just got a couple of recurring elements.
Yeah, I mean, there were elements that popped up, but I don't think they were ever satisfyingly paid off, you know. So we had the Stenza and Tim Shaw, who obviously came back, but then there was Krasko, who I thought would come back, but never did.
Just vaporized.
Yeah, you had the characters at the end of the Ghost Monument that I thought potentially could come back, but they never did.
There was the really alluring reference to the Timeless Child, which everyone was theorizing back about like 8 weeks ago, and we've heard nothing of that since. So it's just loads of these loose threads that just don't really go anywhere. And any of them, I think, could have built up to be something leading towards the finale. Like, I know that the plot for the finale was like, there is 9 distress signals on a planet, and I was like, oh, there's 9 distress signals, 9 episodes. Oh, maybe it's doing something, and it didn't.
Why don't you write the next series?
Just like, Chibnall, get out. I'll have a crack. I'll sit in my armchair and write some nonsense. I just miss the series arc, and I hope that's something that now that they've established this new Doctor Who, the new Doctor, new companions, like for a new generation of fans, I really hope they kind of get back to that series arc thing, because I think it just, when done right, it really works for Doctor Who.
All right, that was what we thought of Doctor Who Series 11. It's been fun, but let us know your thoughts on Series 11, on Jodie Whittaker, on the companions, on your favourite moments, and whatever else you want to speak about, as long as it's Doctor Who related, in the comments below. Or you can come yell at us on Twitter. I'm at DeusZ.
I'm at Adam Rees-Mace. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.